And so in FPL, the day we have been waiting all week for is here. It is Wildcard Saturday, and now the decision has to be made. Do I wildcard before the deadline for game week 27, or do I wait for game week 28? And there are strong arguments in both favours, and we have discussed them this week, but now it is time to decide. And we are going to get into that today because there are just a few more drafts I need to bring to you. A few more drafts it would be remiss for me to ignore, because when we're talking about wildcarding early, when we're talking about selling Erling Haaland, these are decisions that cannot be taken lightly. They have to be met with the gravity they deserve. So what the plan for today is to show you just a few more drafts, a couple of wildcard 27s that do not have Cole Palmer in, a couple of wildcard 27s that have Joao Pedro instead of Cole the Goal, and then I'm going to show you a couple of Erling Haaland drafts as well, because we are not going to enter this decision without thinking it through properly. It would be rude of me, it would be wrong of me to dismiss these ideas out of hand, because things change on a daily basis in FPL, and there have been some big things this week since that last video, some big factors to consider that weren't factors earlier on. So the first one is, I started to get the feedback from the people I respect the most. I got the feedback from the Pubcast lads. I saw the Pubcast stream on Wednesday night, and they discussed the idea of Wildcard 27, of Wildcard 28, and they were not positive about it. And it surprised me a bit, because the person who doubted it the most was D-Unit, and that did surprise me, because the D-Unit is such a maverick. The D-Unit is always open to these alternative approaches, and he had the doubts. He could not get his head around it. And what his plan, his counter-argument was instead of wildcarding now, I should stay with the wildcard 33 option, but instead of bringing in the players that everybody else will, to pick different ones. And I get this argument, I do. We'll talk about the wildcard 33 with alternates option right now quickly, because this is the favoured option of my man Trout from Solio, who is the one that's really got me thinking about how to engage with risk in FPL. And it's funny because the whole Sol versus Solio series, the projections aren't the thing that stuck with me. It's engaging with risk. And for me, I've thought about this. I have thought about this deeply. And what the argument D-Unit is putting forward here is to delay the wildcard to game week 33, then to wildcard with alternative players. And that's silly to me. That is not a better option than the one on the table now, because what he's talking about is keeping a weaker team for the next 5 weeks, keeping worse players than I could have for the next 5 weeks with these great fixture swings for some great explosive players, ignoring them all, keeping a worse team, and then in game week 33, game week 32, wildcarding to an alternative draft when everybody else is wildcarding. So what he's saying is, let everybody else get the best players in game week 32 and then pick weaker players. So I do see where he's coming from. It is something Trout said as well. Wildcard late, get the alternates. But I could have great players now and great players in game week 32, game week 33 for the double. Or I could listen to this strategy and have worse players now and then have a weaker team for the run-in as well, and just hope to get really lucky. And it just does not make any sense to me. It just doesn't. Like, that is engaging with, that is a bigger risk to me than wildcarding early. So it's not one I'm interested in. My plan is to get the best players now and then deal with double game week 33 down the line with the 5 free transfers in that game week, the 7 free transfers I will have up to then, and of course the hits I am prepared to take in the double game week to get better players if the opportunity is there. And I don't think it will be difficult to do that. No, the big thing that actually caused me the doubt was Nick Trigger. And he was a lot more optimistic about the prospect of the early wildcard than D-Unit, and that did surprise me, because Trigger's normally the one that urges caution. But the point he made is that all week, for weeks now, I have been saying Erling Haaland is the best captain for game week 27 for this weekend, because he's up against Newcastle, and Newcastle away have been diabolical, injury prone, lots of a diminished squad, and we're travelling back from Azerbaijan. What has changed? What is making me now think Cole Palmer is the best captain? Well, the reason is simple. Newcastle have improved. Newcastle are better. Like, we're talking about, when I was making those claims, we were talking about a Newcastle who couldn't win away. Now we've won 3 times away in a week against Spurs. Fair enough, it's Spurs. Against Aston Villa. And the argument is they were down to 10 men, but they were down to 10 men because of the way we were playing. Newcastle were playing. They were down to 10 men because Newcastle were playing them off the park with 11. And, of course, Villa's goal was offside anyway. And then we went to Azerbaijan and we absolutely destroyed them. And now you could say, yes, it's a weaker team. Karabag would be, it's the equivalent of thrashing Burnley. But Newcastle haven't been thrashing the likes of Burnley. Newcastle haven't been thrashing anyone, apart from Everton 4-1 away, But Newcastle haven't. The Newcastle of 2 weeks ago would not have managed to pull off these results. The reason is because of the system change. Anthony Gordon in the number 9, Nick Voltemade withdrawn into midfield. It has changed it all. It is a proper Eddie Howe team now. You have that creative midfielder in Voltemade who can provide goals. And now you have the high energy, high intensity presser at number 9 in Anthony Gordon. And, his high intensity pressing led to 2 goals early against Karabag, and it's clicked. It's finally clicked after a season of struggle. Eddie Howe has found the solution, and that makes it difficult for Man City, more difficult for Haaland. And look, he looks like he's going to be fit. But the other thing is, we're talking Marmoush. Let's talk Marmoush. 5 goals in 2 games against Newcastle at the Etihad. You could just rest Haaland again. Give him that extra week. Who knows? They probably won't. They'll probably play Haaland alongside Marmoush. But the risk is there. The possibility is there. So Cole Palmer, we know is going to start. Cole Palmer, we know is rested. Cole Palmer has that 20-point potential, and he's playing Burnley. So, yeah, that is one thing. Trig did cause the doubts, and the thing is, doubts are natural when we're talking about a decision of this magnitude, because it is a risk. There's no denying that. We're going without Erling Haaland as he approaches a good run of fixtures. Let's not deny that. It is a great run for Erling Haaland. He has Newcastle, he could easily put us to the sword. He could. Then it's Leeds, Forest and West Ham. 2 of them are away from home. One of them is against a team resurgent in confidence. And Nottingham Forest, who knows what they're going to be like with Vitor Pereira. I don't know. I feel the opportunity is there to go without him. And I'm not the only one. I am not the only one. I have had other, for all I have had the people causing the doubts, I have had other FPL managers whose names you will know discussing the wildcard with me, discussing their own possibility, their own desire to do it themselves. Now, I'm not going to tell you who they are because it is their prerogative to reveal if they do that. And, they don't deserve to be called bottlers if they go against what is a very risky decision. I'm under no illusions. The team I've got already is perfectly fine. So it is a risk. And I know that, and I'm not going to say, but I am not the only person you will know who is considering this, who is likely to do this. And, You know, it might go wrong, but it might be the difference maker. The other factors to consider is that Wednesday night, we saw Arsenal absolutely bottle it. And this is a problem for me because, you know, the double game week, they conceded 2 goals away from home. And people are like, oh, well, they're away from home. You know, it's one of the things that could happen. And it is, you know, but Brentford, decent team. Wolves, average, very average team. And now they're playing Tottenham away in a derby. Do I really want a double Arsenal defence who concede these soft goals, whose mentality is going down the pan, as it always does at this type of year? Second again, ole, ole. Why would I want a double defence for that when I could have better options? And the other, so that is one key factor. Arsenal have gone, and this is why I'm again considering Haaland, because he's like a shark who smells blood. Man City are the shark who smell blood in the title race, and they could quite easily crank up that pressure. But at the same time, they could feel it themselves. So again, I'm not against selling Haaland. I'm still likely to do it. The other factor for my team is the injury to Maxence Lacroix, and that is a big one because if I go with the team I've got, then it's, you know, I've got Henderson, Munoz, who probably won't keep a clean sheet. Let's be honest. Crystal Palace, the defence is a mess. They conceded 3 goals to Burnley with their best defender, who is only the best defender because they've sold their actual best defender. So they've lost both the best defenders, and they're playing Wolves, who have just had that massive, you know, uplifting result against Arsenal in the week. So I don't fancy Palace for the clean sheet, and then I don't fancy Tottenham for the clean sheet. So, you know, that is the big thing. That is just leaning me towards the Wildcard 27 rather than Wildcard 28. It's that defence looks hideous to me. And you might think, oh, it looks good. The possibilities are there. They are. But it looks hideous to me. Hideous. And the more I look at the team, the more it looks hideous, you know. Now, there are other factors to consider. One, a big one for me when I come to these drafts is the Anderson Conundrum. The Elliot Anderson Conundrum. Because you say, you know, we're talking about these explosive options, Dango Ouattara, Ryan of Bournemouth, but they are, you know, Dewsbury Hall, great options, but they are laden with risk. You know, Dango Ouattara, great games, great fixtures, a lot of confidence, lovely player to watch. I saw him tear Newcastle apart, fantastic stuff. No, obviously not Newcastle being torn apart, but you know what I'm saying. But it's Ramadan, and he is a practicing Muslim, and that is the problem. Like, he should be fine. The Premier League are making the adaptations to the drinks breaks to allow the Muslim players to take on the fluids. But for Bournemouth, he was benched throughout the whole of Ramadan, and that is not an ideal scenario. And it's one I could maybe wait a week, and Wildcard, in Wildcard 28, I'd have more of an idea. But, you know, Ryan, we'll talk Ryan, great option, looking really good at the start. But these options for Bournemouth are coming back. Tavernier back in training, should be back next week at the very latest. You know, Krupi, Evan Nilsson, Tavernier, Adley, Ryan and Brooks all fit. You know, that's 6 into 3 does not go. And then there's other options as well, you know. So Ryan is a risk as well. And Dewsbury Hall, you know, Everton, I don't think they've got good fixtures. You know, Man United, Newcastle, Burnley, Arsenal, Chelsea, it's just not ideal. Dewsbury Hall for that Burnley game could be nice. And he's in one of the drafts, you know, for that one game. But these aren't players you want to hang your hat on. Elliot Anderson, in the last 8 games, is averaging 5 points a game. Now, we're talking explosive options. We're talking these players who can go 2 points, 2 points, and then 10 points. That's 14 points. Great stuff. If we nail that haul, it's great stuff. But Elliot Anderson is averaging 5 points a game over the last 8 game weeks. 5 points a game is the equivalent of an assist. If I was to say I'm signing Dango and he's getting an assist every week, you'd think that was a great signing. Elliot Anderson is putting up those numbers. And we saw last night in Europe, he was a lot more involved in the attack. You know, he was much more involved, and we don't know what Pereira's going to do, but we know what Elliot Anderson is going to do. He is going to pick up that 2 points, that 4 point baseline. Is Anderson only 6% owned? A great differential still. Is Anderson a better option for that fifth midfielder spot than Dango, then Ryan? That's what I'm still weighing up. I'm still weighing it up. So those are the things. Let's get into the drafts. Now, I, of course, have done a Haaland and Salah draft. And that draft is Kelleher in Dubravka in goal. In defence, it's Gabriel, Hill, Coyote, Reinildo and Rodon. In midfield, there's Salah, Fernandez, Rodgers, Anderson and Dewsbury Hall. And in attack, there's Haaland, Joao Pedro and Igor Thiago. That is my Salah and Haaland draft. And I like it, The defence is weak. It is a weak defence, but it is rotational, You can bring in... If we think James Hill is going to start every week and he's going to pick up the DEFCONs, then he's not an issue. He's got great games until game week 32. Some might say 31. I would say 32, by which point we're going to have to make transfers anyway. We can adapt to the unfolding picture. So then you're rotating Reinildo, Coyote and Rodon. And, they're great. Coyote's got great games until game week 36. And fair enough, he doesn't have the DEFCONs, but he does have that long throw power. He does have that attacking potential. So if you were playing Gabriel, Hill and Coyote every week for the next 5 weeks, that is fine. It's absolutely fine. You've got Reinildo as an option off the bench. Rodon as well has got some good games. He's got some tough games, but he's got Sunderland in 29. He's got Brentford in 31 and Wolves in 33. And this is actually one thing that I should have said. Rodon, Leeds are a cheat code for the early wildcard, as are Brentford. Brentford and Leeds, Coyote, Rodon, these are cheat codes for the early wildcard because Brentford have great fixtures until game week 36. And they have Leeds in the blank, and then in double game week 33, they have Fulham at home. And then Leeds have got decent games, not great, but in that double, they play Wolves at home. So if these two teams don't double, then you're still left with players against Fulham at home and Wolves at home. The single game week players playing Fulham and Wolves from attacking teams with high points potential for the right fixture. So if you are left with single game week players, they are great options. They are great options. And, if you end up with a bench in the double game week of Kelleher, Coyote, Thiago, well, for argument's sake, Kelleher, Thiago, Calvert-Lewin and Dango Ouattara, if that is your bench in the double game week and they're playing Fulham at home and Wolves at home, I mean, that's bench boost worthy anyway. And maybe you don't need to take the hits. So they are the cheat code, and that's why they feature prominently in these drafts. So yeah, back to the Haaland and Salah draft. Weak defence but rotational. The midfield and attack, so strong, The starting Pedro, Haaland, Thiago, Anderson, Rodgers, Fernandez and Salah. It's so strong. Dewsbury Hall as the 8th man. It's beautiful. And then, next week, I could use my 2 free transfers. I will need to use 2 free transfers before game week 33, so I could use them next week and swap Joao Pedro and Elliot Anderson for Calvert-Lewin and Anthony Gordon. And I'm going to get into Anthony Gordon because he features prominently in both these drafts and my thoughts, and I'll get into him in a second. But if I do that, yeah, you might say, why sell Anderson? It's because Dewsbury Hall has Burnley in game week 29, and he is, you know, if you've got him in 28, you might as well keep him for 29. Sell Anderson for a few weeks, get him back later if needs be. The weakness to the draft is obviously the defence, you know. Gabriel is fine, Hill is fine, but conceding a lot, and then Coyote, Ronaldo, Rodon, rotational, it's fine, but it's not spectacular. Probably not getting a lot of points, but will that be offset by that explosive attack? I think so. I love it. I love it. There's, you know, lots of penalties in there, in that attack, explosive potential. The only thing I don't like is that there's no Semenyo, and Semenyo for me is vital. I would go so far as to say Semenyo is probably Man City's best attacker for this next run, because he's a phenomenal player, and I think he's at less rotation risk than Haaland at the minute. So that is the big downfall, and it's enough to make me question whether that is the one to go for, but I do like it. And of course, you have Mo Salah and Erling Haaland, both of them. Not many people in the game will have both Haaland and Salah, and that power could be massive. But what if I do a Haaland draft without Salah? Suddenly the defence is much stronger. Instead of Ronaldo, you've got Mukiele. Instead of Rodon, you've got Concert. And, you know, here, again, a bit of a cheat code. He's got Leeds at home next week. He's got this weekend. He's got Wolves away next week. In the blank, he's at home to West Ham. In game week 33, the double, he is at home to Sunderland and has that double potential. I like Concert. He's perhaps not as flashy as some of the other options. He probably won't get the DEFCONs. He probably won't get attacking returns. But if he can tick over with those games, that might be enough for it. It might be enough when you look at what the rest of the squad has. You know? So the Haaland no Salah draft, Kelleher in goal with Dubravka on the bench, and then you've got Virgil, Gabriel, Hill, Mukiele, Concert in defence. In midfield, instead of Salah, it's Florian Wirtz. Then you've got Fernandes, Rodgers, Semenyo and Anthony Gordon. And then up front, you've got Haaland, Thiago and Calvert-Lewin. I love this. I absolutely love this because that attack is so strong. If Florian Wirtz has been outplaying Mo Salah for a long time, you know, outpointing him, if that continues, then this could be like, you know, you look at that attack. You've got Gordon, Wirtz, Fernandes, Rodgers, Semenyo, Haaland, Thiago with Calvert-Lewin as the sub option. It's just sensational. And fair enough. This week, Gordon has Man City, not ideal. And if you remember something I have been so argumentative about, so strong on, it is the power of Mukiele. Bruno Guimaraes and Nordi Mukiele. Now, Mukiele is dead with that Bruno Guimaraes injury. Mukiele is in the ground. It has burnt away. But from the ashes, Gorkiele can rise. From the ashes, Mookie Don can rise like the Phoenix, and Anthony Gordon, that high-intensity number 9 with penalties. You know, I still believe in the power of Mukiele. I still believe in the argument behind that home rotation, that perfect home rotation. And now Anthony Gordon is stepping up to the plate. Now Anthony Gordon, in a World Cup year, desperate to prove his worth to Tuchel in highly contested positions. Now Gordon is coming to the forefront. And maybe this is the secret weapon. Maybe this is the secret weapon, 2.2% owned. Nobody's going to go there, but he's only got one bad fixture. Next week, 28, it's Everton at home. Then it's Man United at home. Then it's Chelsea away. That's fine because you've got Mukiele with Brighton at home, and then in the blank is that big derby against Sunderland. And I can't lie, I am a storyteller. And the reason I am having to play this risky play, the reason I am having to take this chance with the early wildcard, it all boils back to Anthony Gordon. It all boils back to that game week 2 captaincy against Liverpool when he got the red card, when he forced the game week 3 wildcard, when he reduced me to 9.8 million in the overall ranks. And I am a storyteller, and I am a romantic, and I am a Newcastle fan, and I want to believe. I am the Fox Mulder of FPL. I want to believe. I believe in this game. I believe in the power of the narrative. And for my season, I don't know if there is a more powerful narrative than the man that caused the crisis being the one to fix it. The man that caused the crisis being the one to steer us through back from 9.8 million to the top 100k. It's a gamble. It's a huge gamble. But I am a gambling man. Maybe next season I won't be. But for this season, for 12 more game weeks, I am a gambling man. And Gorkieli is a gamble I believe in. But if we bring it back from the emotion to the strategic, back from the emotion to the logic, what is the problem with the Haaland no Salah draft? There is no Chelsea. And it might sound silly, but part of the reason I want the wildcard is that fixture, whether it's by bringing in Pedro and Cole Palmer this week and wildcarding in 28, or by wildcarding now. Part of the reason is because I want those Chelsea assets, and I don't have any in this team. So that is a bit of a problem, you know. This draft is probably better if I wildcard on Wildcard Saturday after the deadline. I could bring in Palmer and Pedro for Guimaraes and Ekitike for game week 27 if I am prepared to take a -4 to weaken a defender. And you might think, what's the point in taking a hit the week before the wildcard? Well, if I believe Cole Palmer has 20-point potential, if I believe Joao Pedro has 13-point potential, that's 53 points. That is worth paying 4 points for. The other way I could do it is by selling Ekitike for Krupi and getting Palmer in instead. But then I look at the rest of the team. I look at that double Palace defence. I look at that double Arsenal defence. I'm just not feeling it, pal. I'm just not feeling it. So that is the thing with the Haaland draft. I do like it. Haaland no Salah. It looks so powerful, and it does negate that risk of Haaland exploding. But that is the risk I'm wanting to engage in. That is the risk I'm wanting to engage in. Now, there is one last, before I wrap it up, because I am well aware I've taken a lot of your time this week, and I am very grateful for it. I'm very grateful for the support you show me and for the engaging with the ideas, the conversations. They have refined my thinking. And, you know, I'm not going to lie. All these people telling me it's not going to work, it's the wrong move, it's actually making me want to double down. I am someone who has doubted myself too much this season. I doubted 4 weeks ago, I did that video about Cole Palmer being the only differential gamble left to play, the ultimate differential gamble, and I didn't play it, and I regret it. And this is a season of regrets, of the gambles that I've taken that have gone wrong, but more so of the gambles I haven't taken that have gone right. They are actually the ones I regret the most. And I've got 12 game weeks left, and I don't want to have any more regrets. Will I regret selling Haaland? If I do, I could certainly get punished by him. I could certainly get obliterated by him. My rank could be decimated without Haaland. And that would be a choice. That's all on me. That's my fault. But would I regret it? I just don't think I would. I just don't think I would. Would I regret not selling Haaland, not getting Mo Salah, if Mo Salah smashes him in the next 5 weeks? Yeah, I would. I would regret that the most, because it would be a sign that the fear won. It would be a sign that the naysayers and the voices got in my head. It would be a sign that I lost my balls, and I am a man who likes the big balls call. So I have one other No Haaland draft to consider. I'm not going to repeat the ones I've already shown you in other videos, but this one is a Wildcard 27, but with João Pedro instead of Cole Palmer. And it might well be my favourite draft of the entire week. In goal, it's Kelleher and Dubravka, and they are locks. Like Kelleher, like I say, he's got the fixtures. Excuse me, Kelleher has got the fixtures for the rest of the season, and he's got that penalty saving potential. And he's 4.5 million. He's an absolute no-brainer. He's so much of a no-brainer. If you don't have him, I'd probably use a transfer to get him. He's that good. So yeah, this draft for the Game Week 27 wildcard with No Haaland, the final No Haaland draft to consider. It's Kelleher and Dubravka in goal. It's Gabriel, Hill, Mukiele, Konsa and Gudmundsson of Leeds in defence. In midfield, it's Semenyo, Bruno Fernandes, Morgan Rogers, Anthony Gordon and Mo Salah. And in attack, it's Thiago, it's João Pedro and it's Hugo Ekitike. And I love this draft. I love it. And yes, João Pedro is there. Like, obviously, the clear weakness is Gudmundsson, you know? And it is a weakness. We can't lie. It is a weakness. With this draft, what I like about it the most, we'll talk about the positives. I mean, it's so attacking. Look at that attack. It is sensational. Why on earth would you be scared of going against Erling Haaland when you have that as your weapons, when you have those generals as your army to take on the big bad, you know? Haaland may be the Norse force, but in this world of atheism, all the gods must fall, and the Norse force is perhaps the final one to go. And those men, they are the Kingslayers. They are the men who can take him down. Rogers, Fernandes, Semenyo, Salah, Gordon, Thiago, Pedro, Ekitike. Gordon on the bench this week. And then next week, João Pedro on the bench against Arsenal while Anthony Gordon plays Everton. It's fantastic. It's unbelievable. At the right time, João Pedro to be sold for Dominic Calvert-Lewin for those fixtures I've said earlier. I like it. And there are options in the defence. You know, I could go with Mukiele, Konsa, and that's fine. We don't need to talk about their strengths. I've already done that. Could go with Ronaldo over Mukiele and get Konate in instead of Konsa. And that's very strong as well. Like, Virgil is the one everyone will go to from Liverpool. But like my man, the D unit said, Konate is only 12 points behind him. And that is a result of one fewer start and one fewer goal. It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. If we take away the goal, the 3 bonus points and the start in that other game, they are the same player, except Konate is a lot cheaper. You know, obviously Konsa isn't great, but it is what it is. You know, like I said, I'm not going to reiterate him. I could have Coyote. Probably, maybe even a better option, Coyote. You know, he's got a great run of games for a long time. Maybe I could even go Coyote over Mukiele. Who knows? It doesn't matter, because whenever I sell João Pedro, then I'm going to have the money to upgrade Gudmundsson or Konsa or Coyote or Mukiele or James Hill, whoever I want. I will have the money to get in the best defender at the time. Might even be an Arsenal defender if they sort themselves out. Might be Matheus Nunes, who, you know, I was keen on earlier in the week, looking against him now. So those are the plans. All of them leave me with 5 free transfers for game week 33, that big double. All of them cover the blank beautifully. It is a risk, you know. It is a risk to go with the early wildcard, but the more I think about it, the more I feel wildcard 27 is how I'm going to shake down tomorrow. Wildcard 27, wildcard Saturday, I feel it's going to end with the wildcard activated before the deadline. It is a risk, but it is ultimately perhaps the last chance to take real risks in FPL, because if the game remains as it is, if the game stays the same with these DEFCONs, with these overpowered penalties, the next season we all know the strategy. It's 4 DEFCON daddies in defence and it's 6 penalty takers in attack, and then we'll see you in 5 game weeks' time to change the penalty takers for the ones with the best fixtures. You know, it's... Next season is going to be so easy with these DEFCONs. We've had the trouble this year as we adjust, but now any manager worth his salt is going to find next season easy unless there are changes made. The problem with all of these drafts that I have shown you today, that I have talked about, is that they don't have Palmer. And Cole the Goal is the one I really want. The only question is whether getting him in these drafts, and I could get him in any of them without too much trouble, it's whether it's worth 2 transfers next week rather than 1 to replace Joao Pedro, you know? And maybe it is, because it's easy to do Cole Palmer and, you know, Elliot Anderson or Ouattara Dango to Morgan Rogers and Anthony Gordon or Semenyo or whoever next week. It's easy. The funds line up beautifully. Not a worry. And Palmer is the one I want. Palmer is the one I see as the best captain. So, all this talking, I still don't have a definitive answer for you. And it might be frustrating, but, you know, what this week has been is a stunning insight into how my mind works. You know, I've put out, 2 hours of content, all about one decision, all about which draft to play. But I feel like I've talked it all through really well. I feel like if you are on the fence, then, you know, you've got the possibilities ahead of you now. And I do think this is the play. I do think anyone under 300,000 in the overall ranks should be wildcarding on Wildcard Saturday, because you wait till 32, you've got the same team as everyone ahead of you, the same team as those 67% of engaged managers ahead of you. How much ground do you think you're going to make up when they've all got the same team, when they're all still engaged? Probably not as much as you'd imagine, certainly not as much as in recent years. This is the time. If you want to chase the ranks, it is Wildcard Saturday is the time to do it. Whether it's before the deadline, whether it's immediately after, Wildcard Saturday is the last chance to make those huge gains in the rank. The last chance over this next 5 game weeks to really attack the field before the fixtures dictate to us who we should be having. And then at that point, the option is whether to go with weaker players and hope to get lucky, or whether to go with the same players as everybody else. Now, game week 27, game week 28, Wildcard Saturday, now is the chance to differentiate yourself to a huge advantage. Do not waste it. Thank you for watching. We will see you next time.